Okay, sorry about that. But here we are. We are back and we are ready off of our 2-week break to finally talk some NFL. We're going to talk a bit about the offseason and the winners and losers, as you can see on the screen right there. And we're going to mention a few of the news pieces around the NFL as well, including Lamar Jackson, Deshaun Watson, Aaron Donald and Cooper Kupp and their contracts, and the sale of the Denver Broncos. So that is pretty much what we've got in store for today. So I guess let's kick things off and talk about the off-season winners. So I'm kind of this is going to be my own subjective view of what teams did the best in the off-season. So I'm going to be talking about their draft picks, whether they used them to trade or used them to take players in the first round, and kind of whether I think those first round picks are going to be successful, I guess. And I'll also be talking about the free agent signings that each team made as well. So that kind of trades, free agency signings, and draft picks, and that kind of just combining all of those things, and I think which team used their resources the best to improve their team for the 2022 season. Of course, some teams have different needs. For example, my first team is going to be the Denver Broncos. And I think these guys are winners, not because they made lots of amazing signings, like they didn't use their draft pick, they didn't sign many amazing players in free agency, but they plugged the biggest need on their team with Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Last season, he was a little bit off, I've got to say, but I think that this season, with a better surrounding cast at the Broncos, and he's not stuck on the Seahawks, where their offense was really struggling last year. So let's talk about last year, Russell Wilson's kind of worst year so far, I think, and then we'll talk about kind of how I think that he will improve the Broncos as well. So the bottom line is he is a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. Whether he's on his game or off his game, he's a top 10 quarterback for sure. And last season, the Seahawks offense that he was playing for, it struggled quite a bit, especially with the short yardage situations. Running the ball, they were okay, but short and medium passes, they were not very good at. And I don't know whether that's Russell Wilson's fault, or whether that's Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, the wide receivers, who blew the tops off the defense and made those deep threats worked so well. And basically, without those deep passes, the Seahawks offense would have been terrible. However, Russell Wilson has the best deep ball in the league, and it really showed by the way they were able to move the ball down the field using that method in the 2021 season. However, I don't think it's going to be that simple for the Broncos, because they have two fantastic running backs, Melvin Gordon III, who signed a 1-year deal this offseason, and also their rookie running back, Javonte Williams. Correct me if I'm wrong, I think that's his name. And anyway, he was fantastic last year. And I think having two great running backs and also three pretty decent receivers, not on that upper echelon of talent, I think they have Cortland Sutton's probably their best receiver. And he's a good second receiver, but maybe not the best for like a best number one receiver like Devontae Adams, Cooper Kupp, some of the guys maybe we'll talk about later, in fact. So I think that the Broncos made a fantastic move acquiring Russell Wilson, and I think that the team around the Broncos team is so good that I think it's going to be a pretty successful 2022 season. It might be some growing pains starting off, similar to how Tom Brady was when he joined the Buccaneers in 2020, but I do think it's going to be a really good signing, and he's going to be there for another 10 years. So I think I would call the Broncos winners, despite not making an awful lot of moves otherwise that you could call successful. So I think, I'm classifying these winners as teams that I think are going to be making a playoff push this season. And the Broncos, with their excellent defense, I think they were top 5 in defense last year, and an offense that is very adequate. I don't think it's one of the worst offenses in the league. I think it's a very middling offense, but with Russell Wilson, he just takes them to the next level. And I think that's going to put the Broncos in the playoffs in the upcoming 2022 season. So in second place, another AFC West team is the Chargers. I think the AFC West as a whole made some fantastic moves. And I just think the Chargers were the tip of the iceberg in terms of how excellent they were at plugging those gaps and really filling the needs that they needed to do in order for the Chargers to take the next step. And, these guys that they brought in are going to make the one game difference that stopped them from getting into the playoffs last season. So they narrowly missed out, losing to the Raiders. And I think had they beaten the Raiders, they would have gone to the playoffs. And I think some of the guys that they brought in the offseason really going to help them take that next step. I think that Khalil Mack and J.C. Jackson were excellent signings defensively. Khalil Mack in the last decade has been one of the best pass rushers in the NFL. The Bears traded for him from the Raiders for 2 first-round picks, I think 6 seasons ago, and now the Chargers have got him for just a second. And a second-round pick is kind of a lot for a defensive lineman that's kind of been tailing off his career a little bit and kind of going to the wayside, but I still think he has so much to offer, especially as he's not going to be the number one pass rusher. They still have Joey Bosa on the other end of the defensive line, and I think those two together are going to be really good. I think it's going to be very similar to last season at the Cardinals with Chandler Jones and J.J. Watt, but I think it's going to be even better because Joey Bosa is by far and away one of the best defensive ends in the NFL and is disruptive game in, game out, when Chandler Jones wasn't quite that consistent as Joey Bosa. And I think Khalil Mack and J.J. Watt, they both are very similar in terms of aging defensive linemen, but I think Khalil Mack probably has a little bit more in the tank than J.J. Watt was last year. So you can expect them to be better, I would say better than the Cardinals' defensive line last year, which was actually pretty good. So I think on offense as well, they made a very, very key first-round draft pick, drafting Zion Johnson, the offensive guard. I think that really protecting Justin Herbert is the best thing you can do. I think that Justin Herbert is an elite talent. He's very young and he's going into his third season now, but his talent is just unreal, and you can see it from in every single throw. I've still got one in my mind that sticks out the most, and it's definitely the pass that he made 4th and 15 against the Raiders. And I think there were 2 touchdowns down at that point. And oh my gosh, he fired it. I can't remember which receiver caught it. It's been a while since I watched it. But he fired it in, and the receiver, I think it was Palmer, number 5. That's my guess. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I think it was a fantastic catch, fantastic throw, and it kept them in the game, really. Sorry about the notifications there. And I honestly think that protecting Justin Herbert is so key, and they've done a fantastic job by getting a new offensive guard. So those are 3 really good additions for the Chargers, and I would be surprised if they didn't make the playoffs. But again, they are the Chargers, and they always seem to kind of miss that final hurdle. But I think their new head coach, Brandon Staley, and their quarterback, Justin Herbert, are going to be a really good match and push them into the playoffs and get rid of that whole Chargers stereotype where they always bottle it in the end. I'm going to stick with the AFC West. And as I said earlier, the AFC West made some really, really good off-season moves. I was going to say Oakland Raiders. The Las Vegas Raiders, they made 2 huge signings, one on the defense and one on the... Oh, I didn't even talk about J.C. Jackson for the Chargers. I talked about Khalil Mack, sorry. Just to go back to the Chargers. Still got it on screen, so it's allowed. J.C. Jackson was one of the best corners in the league last year. And the Patriots really, really missed him when he wasn't there. And oh my goodness, he was such a difference maker defensively in the passing game. And the Chargers, they were really rough in the secondary last year. So that is going to be a huge difference maker. But back to the Raiders. And I'm going to first off mention their big blockbuster trade for Davante Adams. The best receiver in the league. I know not statistically last year with Cooper Kupp around. But I think the best receiver in the league is Davante Adams. And he crossed he crossed America to head to the AFC West from the NFC North. And the Packers gave him up for a first rounder, I think a second rounder as well. So Aaron Rodgers no longer has anyone to throw to anymore, but Derek Carr does. Derek Carr has been making leaps and bounds in terms of progressing throughout Sorry, my wife just walked in. It's very distracting. Here she is. Anyway, so the Raiders. You don't like the Raiders, do you? No, you're not a fan. Do you think they're going to be good this year?
Nope.
Even though they took Devontae Adams from the Packers?
I just ran up the stairs. I'm out of breath.
Anyway, sorry for the squeaky chair. But Devontae Adams, I think, is going to be a big difference maker. So Derek Carr and Devontae Adams were quarterback and wide receiver pairing at Fresno State in college. And I think that partnership is going to grow really, really well. And I think that they are going to... I think they are going to make a fantastic team in the NFL as well. There might be a little bit of a... no, I actually don't think there will be growing pains because they're such good friends. Apparently, this Devontae Adams trade has been in the works for a couple of years now. Devontae Adams was planning on not signing another contract with the Packers so that he could go to the Las Vegas Raiders and play with his college teammate. And they must be best friends or something if he's been wanting to play for them for that long. And I think that's really exciting for the Raiders. However, I think that with the additions the Chargers made and the Broncos, I think that the Raiders are going to really struggle to get into the playoffs nonetheless. This is the kind of move that's going to keep them in the playoff spots. They were in it last year, but they only just got in. I think this would keep them in playoff contention, absolutely. But it's going to be a really tough division with the Chargers, Broncos, and Chiefs. Now, the Chiefs, we're going to mention a little bit later. They didn't do so well in their offseason, but they are still the Chiefs. They still have Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. So if I was going to pick a team to finish fourth in the AFC West, which I'm very hesitant to do because it's such a good division, I would choose the Raiders. They did also sign Chandler Jones, though, who we talked about earlier from the Cardinals. It was a free agency signing, and I think Chandler Jones is going to be he's going to be that secondary defensive end to Max Crosby. They signed Max Crosby to a $98.5 million contract this offseason, and adding Chandler Jones is going to free up Chandler Jones to rush the passer, but also it's going to help Max Crosby on the other side. Defensively, their defensive line is going to be massively improved. So they are going to be a tough team to beat, but they need good defensive linemen to get to these top quarterbacks that are in the division. I think it's the first time ever that there have been 4 elite quarterbacks in the division. I would put all of these guys in my top 10 quarterbacks. That is how good this division is going to be next year. So if you watch any division closely like a hawk, the AFC West, Raiders, Broncos, Chargers, Chiefs. Must watch American football if you ask me. So we're going to move now to the NFC, the New Orleans Saints. I know some of you could call me biased because I am a Saints fan myself, but I really do think that the Saints have had an excellent offseason. Jameis Winston, I know he was there last year, but he's coming off of a knee injury now, and I think he's going to be healthy despite talks of him limping around in practice a little bit. I'm very hopeful that he's going to be healthy for week 1. But they've also got Michael Thomas coming back, who didn't play a snap last year, and they were really close to making the playoffs. So the fact that they didn't have Michael Thomas or a starting quarterback, well, they didn't have Michael Thomas for the whole season. Jameis Winston they didn't have after week 8 against the Buccaneers when he tore his ACL. I think those two makes the Saints playoff team. But not only that, but adding Tyrann Mathieu, Super Bowl winner, and Louisiana's his hometown. He loves the Saints love him, and even though he hasn't played for them yet. But I think Tyrann Mathieu is going to be a very, very key addition to the Saints. So having him at safety, along with a new signing of free agency, Marcus May as well. They're both new, so it might take a little bit time to gel. But that secondary is going to be insane with those two at safety and with Marcus Lattimore. I always get his first name wrong, so I was just getting worried there for a second. And also CJ Gardner-Johnson, who is such an annoying player to play against. I love having him playing for the New Orleans Saints. And not to mention that, but our defensive line is getting pretty strong as well, I think. We've had 2 first-round picks in the last few years on defensive linemen, and of course we've got Cameron Jordan there as well. So let's move on to the offense now, and I think you cannot forget about signing Chris Olave at wide receiver and Jarvis Landry as well to pair with Michael Thomas. So last year we had basically no receivers, and we've added 3 number 1 to number 2 guys, and that offense is going to be completely transformed. Even if Jameis Winston isn't ready for week 1, whoever's our backup is definitely going to have a lot of weapons to throw to, and it's really going to help us down the stretch, because the Saints did struggle on offense last year and the defense did carry us a little bit, but man, oh man, the Saints are going to be tough to beat, and I really think that they're going to challenge the Buccaneers for the NFC South title. Maybe that's me being being a bit over the top as a fan, but I really think the Saints will make the playoffs. And because the NFC West, it's not so good, and the Saints are definitely getting better and better. So we're going to go back to the AFC now, to the AFC East. I've got to say, I think the Dolphins had a really good offseason. I don't think, well, aside from Tyreek Hill, which was an amazing signing, I think, well, if I wouldn't say Devontae Adams was the best in the league, I think probably second Cooper Kupp, third Tyreek Hill. But Tyreek Hill gives you something no receiver can give you. One moment, sorry. Tyreek Hill gives you something no other receiver can give you. He is fast. If you give it to him anywhere on the field, he can score a touchdown. And he is magically fast. And no one can keep up with him. There's no wonder his nickname is the Cheetah. So with him on the team, and now also adding some really good depth as well, adding Teddy Bridgewater to back up Tua Tagovailoa, and also adding Raheem Mostert at running back, the offense is getting really well balanced. I know that their tight end, they've only just signed, what was his name again? Name escapes me, but it's a good tight end. Let me just search it up so I don't make a mistake. By the way, any questions or any comments anyone has, put it down in the chat right now, and I'll definitely mention it by the time we get to Mike Gesicki. That's who it is. I didn't even see it in the end. It just clicked. So they've got Mike Gesicki at tight end. Yeah, any comments, put it down. I'll mention it towards the end when we go, I guess, into questions or anything. They've got Mike Gesicki, Mostert running back, wide receiver Tyreek Hill. They've actually got a fire offense if Tua's able to distribute the ball as well as he can. I think on defense they're going to be really tough to stop. I mean, the secondary, Xavier Howard and Byron Jones, man, that's going to be tough to get past. And I think that even though they haven't got any star names on the defensive line, having the secondary being able to cover really well and stop the offense from, well, the quarterback from being able to make a pass, that's going to give a lot of good coverage sacks. So what I mean by that is, if the wide receivers are covered really well, the defensive lineman will get to the quarterback, no matter who they are, even if it was me. Well, probably not actually, but so I think that, well, I forgot about this name, but it's in my notes as well. Teron Armstead. How can I forget again about him? He left the Saints this offseason, which I was gutted about, but signing for the Miami Dolphins, despite his problems with his injuries, I think that is going to be a really, really key part of the Dolphins offense going forward, especially considering he is, I think he's the best left tackle in the league, to be honest. But there are some injury worries. So I think for the Saints, he played 10 games last year, which is only 2/3 of the season, if that. So I think he is the best left tackle, but considering the injuries, maybe he's not worth the amount of money the Dolphins had to spend on him. But I saw, I can't remember, I think it was Tom Pelissero was talking about the Saints cap situation recently, and apparently the Saints are still paying $10 million on their cap for Teron Armstead. So that is, well, it's not relevant to the Dolphins, but relevant to the Saints nonetheless. So they have some good depth now across the team and a good defense and a new head coach as well. And I think the new head coach, oh my gosh, his name's escaping me as well. I think he was Mike McDaniel, that's the one. He was a former assistant at the Rams, and I think that he's going to bring out all the stops with the offense and going to do really well with just making sure the offense flows. And even if Tua isn't going to throw the ball deep down the field and just throw the short routes, Mike McDaniel's the kind of guy to scheme it up really well and get players like Tyreek Hill, like Mostert, in really good open space where they're able to make some big plays with their legs as well. So our final off-season winner has got to be the New York Jets. I know that there's after the draft, they were the talk of the whole of the NFL. They had 3 first-round picks and spent them really, really well. But I've got to first off say that in free agency, I wasn't too impressed with their signings because it is difficult to see anyone wanting to go to the Jets. They have been a franchise that has been failing for a very long time now. They've got a young quarterback, not the best offensive line, and in terms of wide receivers, there's not a lot of weapons there either. So defensively as well, not amazing, despite having defensive coach Robert Saleh. So I think the Jets, they're not the team that every pro player would want to go to, but in the draft they really made up for it. Starting off the draft with Sauce Gardner, oh my gosh, he is apparently going to be a fantastic corner. I don't know if he's going to lock them down as much as Darrelle Revis used to do for the Jets, but I really think that is going to be a big difference maker in the secondary. And not to mention that, but they've also got Jermaine Johnson. Didn't want to get his name wrong, so just wanted to check. Jermaine Johnson is going to be a fantastic player for them. And I think that adding a top player in the secondary, a top player on the defensive line, and to pair it with their defensive tackle as well. Name escapes me again. Sorry about that. Let me just find it for you, so I don't get it wrong. Quinnen Williams, man, that defensive line is gonna be tough to stop. So I think defensively they'll improve massively, especially with Robert Saleh getting another offseason, another training camp, another preseason under his belt, and then giving Zach Wilson, who's already got a massive arm, a wide receiver like Garrett Wilson. Oh my goodness. There's a lot of talk that the Jets could make the playoffs this year. I'm not quite thinking that they can. I know that my off-season winners, are mainly focused around teams that I think can make the playoffs. I mean, I'd be quite surprised if the Jets did it, but they made a big stride in terms of getting as close as they can to the playoffs. I still think they'll finish bottom of their division because of the strength of the Dolphins, the Patriots, and the Bills. But I wouldn't be surprised if they got 7 wins or so because of the talent that they've added. Zach Wilson and Robert Saleh getting another year under their belts. Zach Wilson's got a really strong arm, and he's definitely going to be able to find Garrett Wilson in some open space. So that does it for the winners of the offseason in 2022. And I think those teams all have fantastic opportunities to make the playoffs. And yeah, I do think that, these teams, there's some of them I wouldn't be surprised if they just missed out of the playoffs, but I think all of them are going to be in with a chance, at least up until about week 16. So I'm going to go on to our off-season losers at the moment. And I guess in the similar vein of the winners were teams that didn't quite make the playoffs or did, but didn't go very far in them and got a lot better. The losers are going to be teams, I guess, that made the playoffs and then got a bit worse, so I wouldn't be surprised if they missed out or let's just get onto the first team and I'll tell you what I mean there. So we're moving on to the Kansas City Chiefs. And I think these guys lost because, if you think about it, losing Tyrann Mathieu, maybe one of the best safeties, our best defensive players in the league, losing Tyreek Hill, one of the best wide receivers in the league, I think those are going to be really huge misses. I know they signed a few receivers anyway, but they signed Juju Smith-Schuster, Sky Moore in the draft, and they also got Marquez Valdes-Scantling from the Packers. None of those guys are number one receivers. I might be wrong about Sky Moore, but I really don't think that these guys are going to be anywhere near replacing Tyreek Hill. And I don't think that's the aim of the Chiefs, to replace Tyreek Hill per se, but you've got to find some receivers that are going to be able to catch. I mean, maybe not as many passes of from Tyreek Hill, but I mean, the Patrick Mahomes has relied very heavily on Tyreek Hill. I mean, and Travis Kelce as well, who's still there, but very heavily on Tyreek Hill. And I think he might struggle to really find that partnership with anyone else on the team now. So whilst the Chiefs are still a fantastic team, I mean, they've got the best quarterback in the league, Patrick Mahomes, and certainly one of the best head coaches in the league, Andy Reid. So they've still got a very good chance of winning the division, but I wouldn't be surprised if they finish first, second, third, or fourth in the AFC West. Of course, we've already mentioned that the AFC West is totally stacked this year. So maybe they're not going to finish number one this year. Maybe, but I still do think they'll make the playoffs. I think they'll finish ahead of the Raiders, maybe ahead of the Chargers as well. So it's up to the Chargers and the Raiders to try and get into those wild card spots in the AFC playoff race. So moving on to the next team, the Tennessee Titans. The Tennessee Titans, they had a great defense last year, and that kind of carried them to the number one seed in the AFC. But they didn't do so well with offense. I mean, Ryan Tannehill, despite having a huge lack of weapons and Derrick Henry being injured, AJ Brown being injured a lot, and Julio Jones just completely fizzling out on his 2022 season, he did okay. But he did show to me that he's not an elite quarterback. I thought at the start of the year that he had the talent to win a Super Bowl at the Titans, but I did not see that down the stretch. And I think that having AJ Brown and Derrick Henry makes him seem as though he's a top quarterback, but without them, he seemed like a regular Joe. And now in this upcoming season, the Titans have lost AJ Brown and Julio, and they cut Julio Jones because he just was not performing. Whilst they did get a first round pick in return for AJ Brown, I did nearly include the Eagles purely because of that AJ Brown trade. They did a fantastic job acquiring AJ Brown, but now the Titans, I mean, AJ Brown is pretty irreplaceable. So I think that they're going to struggle, in all honesty. And I would not be surprised if they didn't make the playoffs. Considering the Colts, I think they're going to be a little bit better with Matt Ryan instead of Carson Wentz. And the Colts haven't really lost anyone of note on their team. So I think they're going to be just as good, the Colts, if not better. And I think the Titans are going to get worse. So with the AFC West being so stacked and the AFC East being so stacked as well, I think those two divisions will take up those wildcard spots. So if the Colts end up winning the division of the AFC South, the Titans are going to be one of the teams who don't quite make it into the playoffs. That's my thoughts. But again, I might be wrong, and I wouldn't be surprised if they got in, considering how good of a coach Mike Vrabel is. But I do think that, again, the Titans probably won't make it in the end. So we'll move on now to the Packers. So the Packers signed Aaron Rodgers to a 4-year, $200 million. Essentially, it's $50 million every single season. He's the highest paid player in the league. And that was a great signing for the Packers. But now, who's Aaron Rodgers going to throw to? They got rid of Devontae Adams, and they didn't draft a receiver until the second round. That is going to be a real struggle now for Aaron Rodgers. And I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on him now. Sorry about that. I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on Aaron Rodgers because if you think about it, when Jordan Love was drafted, Aaron Rodgers had 2 MVP seasons and was brilliant, let's be honest. But now there's no pressure on him anymore. He's been given a very big contract. Jordan Love was not impressive at all, and it doesn't seem the Packers are very high on him. So Aaron Rodgers has no more pressure, and he has no Devontae Adams to throw to anymore. And Aaron Rodgers didn't trust really any other receivers other than Devontae Adams last year. So I think the Packers are really going to struggle. Luckily for them, they are in the NFC North, with the Vikings, Lions, and Bears, who all suck, to be honest. So I think that the Packers are still going to win their division, but they're not going to be impressive at all. Aaron Rodgers is not going to be MVP this year. I just don't think he has it in him after losing Devontae Adams. And also now he's in a comfortable position. And when you're in a comfortable position, you struggle. I'm going to give a couple of examples. I know that they're relevant to me, maybe not to you guys, but my soccer team, Arsenal, when in the last few seasons when they've signed their best players to huge contracts, Mesut Ozil, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, both of them had huge contracts. And as soon as they got huge contracts, they went downhill because that pressure just kind of went from them. They were the main man. And just like Aaron Rodgers, the main man, no more pressure, no more competition for his job. And I think Aaron Rodgers is going to be nowhere near as good as he was this year. But again, I do think the Packers are going to make the playoffs. I do think they are amongst the 4 elite teams in the NFC now. That being, I think the Buccaneers still, but I wouldn't be surprised if they took a step down and the Saints took over the NFC South. I think the Rams, of course, they just won the Super Bowl. The Packers, I guess if the Cardinals get any better, but it's a pretty weak conference now, the NFC, because all those top players have flooded to the AFC now. So moving on now to the Cowboys. The Cowboys got rid of Amari Cooper, and it is quite an aging team, especially on the offensive line. I know they drafted a tackle in the draft, but I think that, Tyron Smith, he's getting it on a bit, that left tackle. Zach Martin as well. I just think that it's maybe I'm going to be wrong, but I don't know if CeeDee Lamb is ready to be the number 1 wide receiver for the Cowboys. And with Amari Cooper gone, they're going to struggle offensively. Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard are amongst aging players as well. Pollard was great last year, but Elliott, man, he is getting on. He's struggling a little bit, and I'm just not so sure about the Cowboys anymore. I think that they will still, it's hard to say they will still win their division since they downgraded their team quite a bit. And the Eagles, man, they got a lot better this offseason. I was this close to putting them in my winners column. So I think the Eagles might be the team that actually wins the NFC East. So the Cowboys, I've got to say, I'm not wholly impressed by them, and I think they might struggle. Anyway, so that is the winners and losers from the 2022 offseason. And so now I think I'm going to talk a little bit about the news section. So Lamar Jackson, sorry the picture's a little bit small there, but Lamar Jackson, he's not been in talks to sign a new contract. He's still on his rookie deal, and any sane person will definitely go for their big money, their big quarterback money. And Lamar Jackson definitely deserves it. The Ravens definitely want to give it to him, but Lamar Jackson's saying he doesn't really want a new contract right now. And with only 1 year left on his deal, next year he would be set to hit free agency should the franchise tag not be given to him by the Ravens, which I'm sure they would, because, of course, he's Lamar Jackson. He's elite quarterback. He's won an MVP. He's gotten the Ravens a few playoff wins in the last few years as well. So the Ravens would be crazy not to offer him a new contract, and they're trying to, but Lamar Jackson doesn't want it. There's a lot of talk, especially from what I've heard from Mike Florio from NBC, that he might end up at the Dolphins next year. And that would be crazy, because if Tua's not going to perform this year, the Dolphins will definitely be looking for a new guy next year. And maybe Lamar Jackson's going to hit the market. It wouldn't surprise me. And I think that if he's not wanting a contract this season, I think he's going to go to free agency, because why would you want to go into your final season with a risk of injury? And if he gets injured next year, tears his ACL, he might go the route of RG3 a few years ago, who just fizzled out of the league after his ACL tear. So I think Lamar Jackson, if he doesn't want to try free agency, is a bit crazy. But he also doesn't have an agent, and his mum is working on that deal. Well, his mum, I guess, is his agent. So, and they're not working on that deal, and that's the whole point of this drama at the moment. So if you ask me, I think that he should sign a new contract with the Ravens. The system that they put Lamar Jackson in is really beneficial for him. With Lamar Jackson getting freedom to run around, I think it's perfect for them. But they just can't attract any good receivers. and they are really struggling in the passing department because of the lack of weapons. So if Lamar Jackson tests out free agency next year, who knows what's going to happen? The Dolphins are the talk of the town at the moment, but maybe the Giants as well are an option because Daniel Jones is in his last year of his contract. And off the top of my head, maybe the Commanders as well if Carson Wentz doesn't work out there. And I don't know, you'd expect him to go to the NFC since the Ravens would not want him to. Well, I guess if he goes through free agency, he can go to any team. So maybe Dolphins, maybe the Commanders. Jackson probably wouldn't want to go there. He'd probably want to go to a big city like New York Giants, potentially to, I was going to say LA, but LA's quarterbacks are sorted. Who knows? Maybe Trey Lance doesn't work out and he goes to the 49ers. That's probably not going to happen. Maybe the Seahawks even. But again, not a big city like LA, like Miami, like New York. So I would expect him to go to a team like that unless he is anything like Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson is really in a bit of a sticky situation at the moment. He is got 24 court cases about sexually harassing women during massages, or the details, they're a bit foggy because it's he said, she said at the moment. They're going through civil courts at the moment, and I'm not too certain about all the legal things going on, but what I know is I don't think he's probably going to be playing this season. With the NFL and the way they do suspensions, he's going to really struggle to get on the field. And I think with all with that whole legal situation, I would not be surprised if he's not playing this year because, 24 cases, a possible suspension. Ray Rice, I think he got 6 games for knocking his girlfriend out in an elevator. But Deshaun Watson, 24 cases, it's probably a whole season if you ask me. And I think if the NFL doesn't pass out a big suspension like that, there's going to be a lot of backlash from casual fans, from female fans, from I don't know. I just think the court of public opinion states that he's got to have a big suspension, or the NFL is not doing those women justice. So I think that he's going to get a big suspension. I'd be really surprised if he hits the field this year. And that, of course, makes you think about Baker Mayfield. Maybe Baker Mayfield's going to play a whole season this year and then hit free agency next year. Who knows? I think it's going to be a really crazy situation. You got to watch this space really with Deshaun Watson. I think that, if you want to know more about the legal situation, check out Mike Florio on NBC because he used to be a lawyer, actually. So he has a lot of good insight into how that situation's working out. But in terms of getting on the field, I really think Deshaun Watson's going to struggle. And the Browns are going to have egg on their face, really. The Browns, I think, maybe they may have made a mistake. Maybe they didn't do enough due diligence on Deshaun Watson and whether he was lying. But it seems like he lied to the NFL and the Browns in terms of of where those court cases all were at. So maybe they're going to treat him harsher because of that. And I think the Browns surely are not going to be happy with him. Any Browns fans are watching or anything like that, please put in the comments down below or anything what your thoughts. I'd love to hear whether you want Deshaun Watson around or anything. I am certainly glad he's not at the Saints right now because the Saints were big in for him this offseason. He's a great quarterback, or was when he was on the field a couple of years ago. But if he's going to have this whole legal situation, if the Browns are now going to be looked on like a team that kind of wants a sexual predator on their team, I'm just very glad he's not at the Saints. I'm very happy with Jameis Winston, and I think the Saints are going to be fine without him. And also, I saw a video, I think NFL memes put it up, of Deshaun Watson just missing loads of throws, throwing his interceptions. Of course, they're trying to make him look bad, but from what I saw, he didn't look so great. So, for the Browns fans' sake, I hope that he does all right. But my view of Deshaun Watson is a bit tainted at this point. So Aaron Donald has now signed the biggest contract of any non-quarterback. So just to make sure I'm not foggy with any of the details, I will find those exact numbers for you. So Donald stands to make $65 million in the next 2 years alone, plus another 30 if he decides to return in 2024. Basically, he is going to earn a boatload of money, and I mean, fair play. He's the best defensive player in the NFL, and he's taken the Rams to the Super Bowl now. He's done a fantastic job there, and he's revolutionized a defensive tackle position. Before Aaron Donald came around, no one really thought defensive tackles could compete for the most amount of sacks in a season. But man, he has done a fantastic job. And I think that that money is well deserved if the Rams don't move it around and mess it up at all. But I think that, yeah, he's going to get his money. I think it puts to, well, of course it puts to bed whether he's going to be playing this year. He's not going to retire this year. He's for sure going to play under this new contract. Maybe he'll retire next year, but I'm fairly certain that these 2 years are going to, he's basically said, all right, 2 years, give me the money, and then I'll get a little bit more. And they've agreed to, if he comes back for his 11th season in 2024, then he can get that extra $30 million. And of course, moving on to his teammate, Cooper Kupp. So Cooper Kupp had the most amount of receptions, yards, and touchdowns of any receiver last season, and he broke a lot of records. He was the best offensive player. He won Offensive Player of the Year last year. He won Super Bowl MVP and was just phenomenal last year. I don't know if he's the best receiver talent-wise, but he has such a good team around him and such a good head coach that they made Cooper Kupp basically have the best season in the NFL. I think Devontae Adams maybe slightly better, maybe Tyreek Hill as well, slightly better. But man, he definitely deserves the 3 years, $80 million I think he got in the end. And he, yeah, definitely deserved it. And Rams are making some big signings. They clearly want to keep their best players and make another Super Bowl run next year and the year after that. Because I think they also signed Matthew Stafford to a big deal this offseason as well. So they're looking to keep those core group of players around for the long haul and keep going year after year and trying to make that Super Bowl. And with the NFC teams kind of taking a bit of a decline in terms of the quality around the NFC, I think they have a really good chance of doing it because the Rams are the best team in the NFC at the moment. The teams that are challenging them, maybe Cardinals in their division, Buccaneers, but I think they're declining a little bit as well. And as Tom Brady's probably going to retire next year. The Saints are improving. Eagles are improving. The 49ers, who knows? I think if they start Trey Lance, they don't have a chance of beating the Rams. Maybe if they have Jimmy G, they do, but it's looking like they're going to start Trey Lance. The Packers and the Cowboys also are like not quite as good. They're a step below, I think. Especially, well, as I said earlier, these other teams have taken a decline in this offseason. And the Rams have signed their best players and kept their best players. And also improved, I think they traded Robert Woods but signed someone else as well. A wide receiver. I can't remember right at this. Let me just check again. Who knows where I'm going with some of my... I can't prepare when I don't know where I'm going with some of that. Some of my points. Rams wide receiver. Allen Robinson, of course. So Allen Robinson moves over from the Bears, and now they have another really good wide receiver as well. With Cooper Kupp moving on, with Cooper Kupp staying at the Rams, I'm pretty sure that the Rams, they're going to be there next year. And that brings us to the end of the news section. So I've got to say thank you guys, all of you, so much for watching. Lindsay Barger, thank you so much for dropping in the chat as well. Thank you for being the first one here. And please do return again next week. So Sundays, around this time every week, I'm going to be going through the news, what I think's going on around the NFL, talk about what's going on around the NFL, talk about the news, my thoughts on what each piece of news means, as I have done today, and also a topic of conversation, for example, offensive winners and losers. I think next week I'm going to be predicting my playoff teams in 2022. So if you want to watch that, do stick around. Follow Wall of NFL on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and also head to wallofnfl.com as well. Thank you guys so much for watching. Leave a like, comment on anything that you thought that I've said, anything you want to comment on, drop it down in the comments below, and come back next week. Thank you guys so much for watching.